He's always husband. So all you have to do is be aware of it. And there's nothing to fear.
Siva vachasimata valeshanata valmesuka aksiva vachasimata valeshanata valmesuka Siva vachasimata valeshanata valmesuka Siva vachasimata valeshanaha Folks, we're all going to be written and sealed for a good and sweet year. That's what we just sang. And we're going to sing all the way to Rosh Hashanah with that melody to bring an awareness to all of us and a surety to all of us. What a good, sweet year we're going to have. And of course, one of the ways that we have a good and sweet year is because we're not worried about only our own sweetness. That we have the sweet things in life, but we want to make sure that others have the sweet things in life just the same. Just the same. You hear that? To what degree are we responsible for others? To what degree do we have to provide in the community for others' needs? Yes, I have a responsibility for my family before another family or someone else in the community. That is most definitely so. Yes, for Chabad, that's our family. But that being said, when does the responsibility begin? Where does the responsibility begin? If I'm, if I've got a 2 cars in my driveway, so now I'm responsible for other people that they should have things in their life. If I have the latest iPhone that just came out, now, once I've got that, so now I can worry about what you have. Today having a smartphone is essential to life, right? When and at what point and to what degree am I responsible for others? That's on individual and also communities. One community for another community. If one community has and another community doesn't have, is it as a community, are we responsible? When do you become responsible? Or perhaps every community has to take care of their own needs and be responsible for themselves. How do we understand all of this? Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kedeshim in Montreal, Canada. We go and begin the 16th letter. And the Alter Rebbe begins with very heartfelt words, my beloved, my brethren and friends who are to me like my own soul. Now, sometimes we write things as poetic beauty, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't do that. He writes it because he really feels that connection. So he says, hardships of these times are not hidden from me. He knows how difficult their lives are. We're talking about under the Tsar of Russia. We're talking about a time when there's pogroms, Cossacks, and all of, the huge challenges that Jewish people had to deal with back in the day. So it's not hidden from me. He knew. He knew exactly what was going on in people's lives. That earning a livelihood, it's declined. And households are without providers. No available work, not for the man, not for the woman, for anybody to have work. And that you're literally, he's writing in this letter, that you're borrowing in order to eat. Borrowing money in order to eat. Oh, let's say l'chaim. We shouldn't be in such a position, right? But this is what he's referring to. So he's giving the background, right? In order that we can appreciate the concept, l'chaim, l'chaim. So, yeah, he says, I'm aware of this. May God have compassion upon you and your difficult straits that you live with it. It says, nonetheless, you're not acting rightly for your souls. Why? Because reports have come back to me that you are closed-fisted, closed-handed, and not giving tzedakah. Imagine you're borrowing money, right, in order to eat, and yet you're not giving tzedakah. Who would think to give tzedakah, right? But the other says, no, you're not doing well. You're not doing appropriately for your soul.
You don't put person hungry.
I just described that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, thank you.
They're borrowing to eat, and yet they should give tzedakah. That's what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
Let it unfold so you'll appreciate what we're talking about here. And not only to give, but to give with a generous eye, right? For those who are completely destitute. Whoa. Whose eyes, he says, are lifted unto us. He's speaking about the Jews who were living in Eretz Israel, in the Holy Land of Israel. At that time, it was under the Ottoman Empire. Those people were completely destitute, right? Compared to the Jews that were in Russia, Ukraine, under the Tsar of Russia, even though very, very difficult, but it didn't compare to those who were living in the land of Israel. The land was a rocky terrain. It was desolate. As we know, when Israel was ever controlled, I say this parenthetically, whenever Israel was controlled by other nations, it was always completely desolate. Right. Today, it's a desert that has been turned into, unbelievable. Because God's blessing will come through the Jews when they're on the land. In any case, this is the background, right? He says then, if we're not going to have pity on them, on these Hasidim that lived in Israel that he was collecting money for, who's going to have pity on them? He says. Now he's going to go into halachic understanding of why there's a responsibility here for these people living in Russia that they should give to those who are living in Eretz Yisrael in the Holy Land. I mean, they're both destitute. They're both without. We're talking about families that had to borrow, that wife and husband don't find work, right? And yet they have to give. Why? So he brings from the Talmud. Talmud tells us that if two people, this is a famous, right, story in the Talmud, or halachic principle in the Talmud. And it's a principle, so it's not important about, like, well, how could that be? That's not important. It teaches us a principle. Two people are in the desert. Only one of them has water. The other one doesn't have water, right? Enough water one has for them to live. If they share it, they both die. Okay, again, how do you know that is irrelevant to the principle, right? It's a principle that we're learning over here. The law is chayecha koidmim. Your life comes first. You're holding the water, right? If you would give the water to someone else, in essence, you're committing suicide, right? In essence, you're committing suicide, right? So your life comes first. Why? Because you have it. not because you're better, not because you're privileged, because it's in your hands, and therefore you giving it, right? Now, this whole debate on this, it's not so simple. I'm just giving the simple idea is that your life takes precedence, right? Now, let's just take it on that simplistic note, okay?
Yes.
So the Alter Rebbe said, "Oh, so then shouldn't the Jews in Russia, their life take precedence? Why are they giving charity? If they're barely living, why should they give charity?" It makes sense.
Mhm.
Look what the principle is in the Talmud. See, Alter Rebbe explain. But only the Talmud is only speaking about in a case where both of you have nothing except one has enough just to live, right? Essentials, right? Water to drink to save your life, right? Hmm. But if a pauper needs bread, right? If a pauper needs bread, literally on the table, and needs firewood and clothes to in the winter to keep warm, which that's essential, as opposed to someone else who nice Shabbos clothes, meat on Shabbos, fish and meat on Shabbos, right? Or other delicacies, right? They're not parallel anymore. You have to forego your meat and fish on Shabbos in order that someone should have bread on the table, literally bread on the table. When do we say your life takes precedence? Is only when there's an equality here of you both need the water, the essential thing for life. But if you have something more essential in your life, or not more essential, beyond essential, and someone else needs the essential, your life doesn't take precedence. You have to give to them before you have fish and meat on Shabbos, that they should have bread on the table. That's the responsibility that you have. Whoa. Is that clear? Is that clear? Thank you, Shmuel. Have a great day. Right? Right? That's a unique distinction there. That's individually. Then the Alter Rebbe brings from the Talmud. Talmud tells us a story like this: two communities living on a river. One lives up here, and one lives down here. This community, the water comes through them first, so they got dibs on it, right? But if they use the water, second community, right? There's enough for them, right? So if this community is using drinking water, the fact that it came to them first is the same idea as the fact that you have the water in your hand in the desert, so you get dibs on it first. And the second community doesn't get, right? Because it came through this community first, right? They don't have a responsibility, the first community, right? Got it? However, just follow. However, if this first community is using the water to wash clothes, that's what they need for. They have a well for their water and they don't need the river for the water. They have a drinking well. This community can't use it because this one needs it for water. They're not allowed to, this community. Is that clear?
Mhm.
That's today's Tanya. It's short, but extremely powerful. So just want to bring out the idea of we see how deep the responsibility is that we have individually and community wise for the Jewish people have for each other. That if you have extras in life and there are people that don't, halachically it's a problem that you have that. Now, we live today in a world of lots of extras. That's the world. Almost everything we have is extra, right? Almost, right? Even the bagel is, because you could have a regular piece of bread, right? We have a bagel. So I don't think it means today, don't have the bagel, only have the piece of bread. But the attitude is, right? It doesn't mean that, we're living in a world, literally, doesn't mean that we shouldn't have that, but we should be very aware of those that don't have, and that we have a responsibility to kind of bring them up to levels of what we have. It doesn't mean to make them wealthy, because we learned that in the verse. It tells you don't have to make a person wealthy if you're wealthy. God bless you, and you're a wealthy person, right? And literally, financially, you're wealthy. Doesn't mean you're responsible to make everybody else wealthy because you're wealthy. But it means you have a responsibility, if it comes to your hands, to an individual who, needs essentials in life, that you have to make sure that those essentials are taken care of. Individually, we have it, and collectively as a community. Any questions, any comments? Very powerful. Chaim. Hmm? Um,
I have a question.
Please ask.
Today on the heart, there's a lot of population. They have like a lot of things, and they are a lot of money, and you have population, they don't have water. So the people who have a lot of bless, and they don't give at the people who are not blessed.
Right.
So they make like comment qu'on dit, ils sont dans la faute envers Hachem. Sont yeah, because in front of Hashem, because there's people who died because they don't have water and food, and they live.
Right.
And it's quelque chose de pire que ça, more awful. It's like they participate to destroy
Right.
like life. And
Yes. So first of all, this is Jewish law that's incumbent upon a Jew. This is not for non-Jews incumbent upon them, because it's the Torah that is for Jewish people, that they're, and it stems also from the fact that the deep bond there is between the soulful bond that there is amongst Jews, therefore makes the responsibility much more profound and deep. So is this something that a non-Jew or a non-Jewish community has that to this degree of responsibility? No. Is there something to learn from here? For sure.
yeah,
Right? Remember that this is law. We're not we talked about here that this is law, right? This is Torah law. So it's a Torah law that Jewish people are that we're obliged to keep. It's not a law of the land, right? Not a law here in Quebec or anywhere, right? But definitely there's an important lesson that we can everybody can learn from here, no doubt about it, right? So you're right, we have a responsibility for others, and this is what the Torah is teaching us. Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's just one God, right? And it's the God of
Yeah, one God doesn't mean it's the same law for everyone. Jewish people have 613 commandments. Non-Jews have seven Noahide, seven universal commandments, which this is one of them is not tzedakah, actually. Interesting. But tzedakah falls under the purview of setting up courts of justice. So courts are responsible for communities, that there should be well-being in communities. They're the basis of that they have that that kind of responsibility. So it becomes a collective, responsibility in a community that is administered by the courts.
Mhm.
That's the way that's the way Torah is setting it up in a non-Jewish world, right? It's interesting, but we have to do a little more research because I don't know what it means on a personal level. So in other words, like on a personal level, in Jewish law, we have a personal responsibility for being charitable. But in the seven Noahide laws, there's nothing there about specifically, for sure, not tzedakah. Again, the only way it's from the courts of justice to create, a proper balance in society. But that's justice. So justice also includes, to be good, to be good to others. But how that plays itself out on an individual level, I'm not certain. Be actually something interesting to look into. Yeah, David.
CJA, they consider like a court who distributes the wealth?
No, again, I was speaking about Noahide laws. In Jewish law, we have a personal responsibility, right? It nothing to do with the court, nothing to do with the Jewish courts. There's a community that has responsibility, and there's individual has the responsibility. That individual responsibility is something that Torah says for a Jew, right?
Mhm.
Any other comments, statements, questions? Let me see over here. Well, questions so far. Indigenous people in Canada are all related, so we have the same pertaining to our family responsibilities. Okay, very good.
Waste.
Looking over here, don't see. Oh. Okay. All right, folks. Amazing. Rambam coming up. Please join us. Thank you. Thank you, folks. I don't know.